Howdy, folks. Today we're going to start reading Beowulf, an English epic poem, and probably one of the oldest pieces of literature to come out of England. It has survived fires and wars and pestilences so that we can read it here in our senior year of high school. I hope you enjoy it. But first, some background information. Okay, the original story of Beowulf came out of this section of England right here. And you'll notice that this is a map of England in the year 886 AD. And that this pinkish purplish color represents the Danelaw, or the conquest of the Danes. The Danes are basically people of northern Germany, also known as Vikings, who used to come to England and pillage and burn villages and steal money and crops. But they didn't all burn and kill and pillage and leave. Some of them actually stayed and, started their own farms and started families and eventually assimilated into England, which is why the story of Beowulf is considered an English tale. This map shows northern Europe, including Norway and Sweden. And here's England again, mislabeled as Britain. But the story of Beowulf mostly takes place in the setting known as Denmark. And also parts of Sweden. Beowulf himself is a hero who comes from Sweden. He goes to Denmark to, do good deeds. And the story migrated from the Scandinavian area to England when Vikings would go over and raid and then eventually settle down. So the story is from this region, but it was written down over here in England. And that's why we're reading it in English class. Okay, the story of Beowulf was originally written in Old English, which, if you look at it closely, doesn't resemble anything close to modern English. Hwat we Gardena in Girdigum, Beldenshinga brim Grifrunen, hu da Apolingus Ellen Fremedon, of Schildscheffing, Shebena Breatum, Moniga Megbum, Meodetsitla Oftea, Exode Erore, Sirden erste Weird. So, it is a dead language, but it has been translated many times over. First by Leslie Hall in the late 1800s, again in the 1900s by Gramere, and the version that we're going to be reading is Seamus Heaney. He is an Irish poet and a Nobel Prize-winning writer and former University of Harvard professor, and we're going to be reading his translation. Now you'll notice all these links are available on the version that I shared with you on Teams. I'm going to be annotating this text heavily as we go, so there's going to be comments on the margin. Most of the stuff will be highlighted over here. Things that I can link, like definitions and particular important names and whatnot, I will link, and I'll continue. This will be an ongoing process. I'm going to continue to annotate as we go. All this is to provide you with good notes so that you can do well on papers and quizzes and projects and things. All right, so let's begin with the reading, and the first word is so. So, the Speardanes in days gone by, and the kings who ruled them, had courage and greatness. We have heard of those princes' heroic campaigns. There was Schildscheffsen, scourge of many tribes, a wrecker of mead benches, rampaging among foes. This terror of the hall troops had come far. A foundling to start with, he would flourish later on as his powers waxed and his worth was proved. In the end, each clan on the outlying coasts beyond the whale road had to yield to him and begin to pay tribute. That was one good king. All right, so the poem begins with a reference to Skjold, the first king of Denmark. He was known as a scourge. He would rampage his enemies. He was a terror. And other countries would have to pay him tribute so that he would, kill them less. And this is considered a good king, Skjold was, which is unusual because he was a foundling, which means he was an orphan. He had no parents, and because he had no parents, then he had no determined fate. He could be anything he wanted in life, and so he decided to be a badass, and he was going to kick butt and get everybody else to pay him money to not kick their butts. And out of this, he was able to create a kingdom known as Denmark. All right, continuing, they're still talking about Skjold here. Afterwards, a boy child was born to Shield, a cub in the yard, a comfort sent by God to that nation. He knew what they had told, the long times and troubles they'd come through with a leader. So the Lord of Life, the glorious Almighty, made the man renowned. Shield had fathered a famous son. Beowulf's name was known through the north, and a young prince must be prudent like that, giving freely while his father lives, so that afterwards in age, when fighting starts, steadfast companions will stand beside him and hold the line. Behavior that's admired is the path to power among people everywhere. All right, so what is he saying? He's saying that even though Shield was an orphan, but he was able to change his fate and become king of a country, he does recognize that having a son will keep control of the country, because there'll be a leader to take his place if he should die. That way, his kingdom will, still be able to prosper. And Beowulf was a good prince. He was good to his friends, so that when his father does eventually pass away, the kingdom will stay under control of the family, particularly Beowulf. Okay, you'll notice that we have different colored highlights here. Okay, if it's blue, it's a kinning. And a kinning, over here on the right margin, is any two-word metaphor that renames stuff. Like Whale Road is a kinning. It literally means ocean or sea. A kinning is a noun followed by another noun with a hyphen in between, and it renames, or it's a metaphor for something. So Whale Road is referring to ocean because that's where whales, swim. They don't literally swim in roads, but that's how the Vikings decided to call them. And it's just a figure of speech that you will need to know for the quiz. All right, yellow highlights are mostly just important words and things that have notes. So if you see a yellow highlight, you need to look in the margins for annotations. Okay, that's the first 25 lines. And in the gray, I'm going to highlight areas that refer to Christianity. Now, this poem was not written by Vikings. It was told by Vikings for hundreds of years before somebody finally decided to write it down. But that person that finally wrote it down was an anonymous Anglo-Saxon monk. We do not know his name, but we know that he was Anglo-Saxon, and we know that he was a religious man. And because he was a Christian, he removes a lot of the pagan parts of the story. So instead of reading about Odin and Thor and Loki, the story is going to have one monotheistic god. So he's constantly referred to throughout the poem as the Lord of Life, glorious Almighty. Notice these are not kinnings because they're not two nouns put together. This one's three words. This one's an adjective followed by a noun. So kinnings have to be noun, noun. So basically we're hearing about the history of Denmark. The first king is named Shield. He had a son. And then we're going to find out more about Beowulf's children. And eventually we're going to get to characters that are actually going to be part of the story. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Another one's coming forthright. See you later. Bye.